Hello and welcome to this Black Talk Radio News Live. Coming to you live tonight via the TikTok platform. I cannot express enough how much I support TikTok. I only recently joined the platform, and the only reason I joined was because the United States government and many representatives are trying to ban it. And I appreciate the owner standing up for freedom of speech and not allowing himself or herself or whoever's running the platform not to be coerced by the United States government to censor speech. And it does happen. Anybody that say they do not censor speech on the internet, on these various platforms, then you weren't paying attention to the 2020 elections when the Biden campaign, was it not the 2020 election? It was right after I think he got elected, Joe Biden got elected. No, it was right before. The story came out right before the election, a so-called October surprise, right, that Hunter Biden, his substance abusing son, who got kicked out of the military and just very troubled life Hunter has led, but his laptop got left at this repair shop, and the guy trying to fix it got into it, and Hunter never claimed it. So anyway, the stuff that was on it, him using drugs, him using sex workers, what that whole culture and lifestyle was about. Well, it was video of that. And so after the Biden administration got elected, what do? They made Twitter take it down. They call it fake news. They say it was disinformation. They said the Russians are behind it, just like they were saying the Russians, Iran, and China, as I talked about in a previous content, blaming them for fake videos about a Haitian guy who said he voted more than once. I mean, really? So that's why I support TikTok, man. When you stand up for freedom of speech, when you spend millions of dollars on attorneys and take it to the federal courts, and you stand up for U.S. citizens' First Amendment right, especially when our government are violating these constitutional principles, especially those found in the Bill of Rights, you got to admire somebody like that. So I'll be on here until they take it down. I actually do kind of like the platform, although it takes a little getting used to. So, again, my name is Scotty. I'm the host of Black Talk Radio News. I think I started Black Talk Radio News. I started doing it in 2008, the same year that the platform was founded. Go check us out at blacktalkradionetwork.com. You got various podcasters on there. We're all black, and we have views and opinions just like everybody else. The thing I think is different about us is, since we're an independent platform that is supported by a nonprofit, which is the Black Talk Media Project, we don't have to worry about being censored. Now, I have put some people off of the network in the past, but that's because they were talking about doing illegal things, talking about harming people, using violence against people, and everything ain't meant for the airways, okay? And we're not trying to bring that sort of negative attention to the network. So I do agree that we do have to, owners of platforms do have a right to censor certain types of content, but within reason. And so TikTok, to me, seems to be the freest platform when it comes to free speech, especially for those of us behind the enemy lines of USA Inc. I wanted to invite everyone in that has joined us. Greetings to you. Give us a like, give us a share, give us a follow. If you think that this content is constructive, we hope you'll do that. And we also hope you'll visit our network, blacktalkradionetwork.com. Hit the donate button. Those donations go directly to the Black Talk Media Project, which is a North Carolina-based nonprofit. And actually, it's our anniversary month. Now, the actual date isn't until November the 17th, but we was founded in 2008 in November, shortly before my birthday, which is November the 30th. Shout out to all the Sagittarius out there. My firstborn, she a Sagittarius too. Shout out to my daughter, Ariel. Her birthday is coming up. But yeah, please support any type of content that you see that you think is enlightening, or you picked up something from, or you just think other people should see it. Please invest in it. And again, you can do that through the various platforms in the ways that they have set up. Become a subscriber. Every little bit helps. The coins do add up, and they do help. So what I wanted to talk about tonight is I want to look at the psychology of ethnic cleansing. Let me pull up something on my screen for those that's catching the video. But yeah, let me pull up something on my screen. Let me find my scenes. Here we go. I saw this meme, right? I saw this meme. Let me hide this link. This meme right here, I came across on the internet. You ever come across something on social media and it just make you go, let me think more deeply about that. So Axel Folio, PhD, I believe the platform was Twitter. I came across it on Facebook. That handle is a Saxonist. I guess they play the saxophone, I would imagine. Not too many people running around referring to themselves as Anglo-Saxons, which we today might know as Brits, the British, but is a Saxonist wrote this. I believe this was, when was this? What's the date? I can't see the date. It's kind of blocked. I think it's October the 22nd. Said, I don't know how we are supposed to recover as humans from this. I'm still stuck hearing his voice. Half a little girl on the wall. Babies decaying in incubators. Children with half their heads missing. How do we as humans recover from this shame of letting this happen? Not to sound cynical or anything, but the world gonna keep turning, and it won't be the last time that we'll see ethnic cleansing. This isn't the first time we've seen ethnic cleansing. And unfortunately, the United States government has been responsible for most of it. If you ask me, especially during the Cold War and continuing after the Cold War, they have been responsible for the mass unaliving of citizens. And as I just got through saying to someone who had contacted me on Messenger, which reminds me, I do want to share a story before we really get deep off into the content. This person contacted me, showing me Bill Clinton had came to this church in Charlotte. And so I was talking to this person and just talking about evil. He was talking about the lesser of two evils. And I'm like, there's no such thing as lesser of two evils. And I know this person identified as a Christian. I no longer identify as a Christian. I identify as a follower of the way. The follower of the way is a follower of the teachings of Yeshua. He wanted, and again, this is not any kind of negative energy. I'm just sharing the conversation. This person I have no ill will towards have supported me in my activism. Actually got me invited to come speak to a church conference as a featured speaker to speak about slavery never being abolished. At the time, we were engaged in a movement to remove the Confederate monument. So this person I would call an ally. I'll call a friend, an older African American. I'm 57, so he has to be in his 60s, maybe approaching 70, and he giving me Old Testament scriptures talking about there's different forms of evil. And I was like, no, I don't follow the Torah. I'm not Jewish. I don't practice Judaism. No, I'm a follower of the way of Yeshua. That's who I follow. And Yeshua don't talk about no lesser or two evils. He said evil is evil. And I give no weight to any other parts of the Bible. I just focus on the four Gospels and would love to learn more about the Eastern Orthodox books that King James and the Romans, go back to the Council of Nicaea, didn't think to include and what have you. But I understand where that Bible comes from, who put it together, and I put no stock in that. But anyway, again, this is all on the subject of a G-side that's going on, a genocide. I think I marked this, and I think TikTok automatically will make it for adults. If I say any trigger words, because I just can't censor myself. And they haven't really even censored me. I see people using these code words, and I'm like, well, y'all must not be marking your lives for adults, because I don't have that issue with them. So anyway, getting back to this meme, how do we as humans recover from the shame of letting this happen? I mean, look at what we let happen to Libya. I mean, as far as I know, they still got open air slavery markets. We have to be careful in our language on how we refer to victims of slavery, but yeah, they still got what they call open air slave markets that happened because of the actions of the Obama administration in 2011 and toppling that government. And I posted some of the pictures and stuff on Facebook of mass black bodies after the proxies that the U.S. government used, Hillary Clinton used, Arabs, racist Arabs at that didn't like dark-skinned Africans who were welcome to come there to work jobs, and that's the type of person Gaddafi was. And yeah, they mass graves with hundreds of bodies. They just bulldozed them in there, just all kind of horrific photos of this ethnic cleansing of Africans out of Libya. United States let it happen and watched it. And so, I mean, we can keep going back. We can go back further. Gulf War, which I was a part of, at a top secret security clearance. Saw some of the bomb assessment data, right? Them knowing they were targeting civilian infrastructure and residential areas. And anybody who follows this type of stuff know they came up with a name for the mass unaliving of civilians. They call it collateral damage. That means that that's acceptable. Those lives don't matter, really, long as they achieve their ultimate objective of toppling whatever government. So this mass genocidal type behavior, it's all throughout U.S. history. And we don't even have to go back 200 years. And that's just the fact of the matter. So a lot of us have no shame. And then an individual like me, I have no reason to be ashamed because I speak out on these injustices, whether they happen into the Black community, the migrant community. If I see something wrong, it's just wrong, man. It ain't no gray areas. We all grow up with a sense of right and wrong. Those of us who weren't programmed in a cult-like fashion to hate other people based on skin color, whatever religious identity they have, I do recognize that a lot of people do that, are brainwashed as children. I actually think that should be treated as child abuse. Teaching children to be racist and to hate other people and to dehumanize them and say that their rights don't matter, their lives don't matter. So Gaza is nothing new. But these people, man, I tell you, it's just a small area. People don't know how small this area is, and you just dropping all of these 2,000-pound bombs, talking about you trying to root out an underground guerrilla resistance force that's already planned for them. You know you're not taking them out. We know about the plans that have been published about Greater Israel and expanding that territory, just like the United States did, at the expense of the indigenous people of Turtle Island, or North America, as we call now the United States of America. Same thing happening there. And really, this is about white supremacy, and I'm not the first one to say that. Many, especially Black scholars, activists, human rights, protectors like Malcolm X, Kwame Ture, even Alec Baldwin wrote about this is racism. That's what Ta-Nehisi Coates wrote in his book, and I appreciate him doing the media interviews and what have you. And I appreciate him using his capital that he didn't build up with the what would we call it, the establishment media, and spending that capital to tell the truth about something. But that's not nothing new. He just did something that Malcolm X did, Huey Newton and Bobby Seale of the Black Panthers did, Alec Baldwin did, actually traveled there and didn't go on the guided tours the Israelis set up to show you the safe parts of town and what have you, and keep you away from the abject poverty and oppression of the Palestinian people. No. And like I was telling that gentleman, elderly gentleman that's about my uncle's age, my uncle did a pilgrimage to Israel in the 70s. He a Christian, and he said to me that it was the Palestinian people who took him in and called him a brother, not the Ashkenazi white Jews practicing white. Well, we're not gonna call them Jews. No, let me apologize to the Jews out there, the ones who are actually practicing Judaism, like the Torah Jews who I follow on TikTok and share their videos. I no disrespect. I know Israel is not a Jewish state, so I should say Zionists. It's not the Zionists who treated my uncle well. It was the Palestinians. And as I told, the brother with much respect, Yeshua was a Palestinian. He wasn't Ashkenazi. He wasn't European. He wasn't what we know in the context of white supremacy, a white person. And these aren't Israelis that you see in the Torah. No, these are white people who converted to a religion, just like Ethiopian Jews who converted to that religion. Just like, I think they call them Sephardic Jews. We have non-white Jews in this world. And guess what? They suffer racism and have been in Israel. It's documented. So what we're dealing with is white supremacy. This has nothing to do with some people being some Jews or some people being some Muslims or some Palestinian Christians. No, this is about white supremacy and capitalism. Colonialism. It's happening right before our eyes, and that's what made me ask the question, what did the Germans, let's ask the Germans. And I said, did anybody ask the German people right after World War II? And I seen some of the videos where they were taking German people on the tour of the camps, the allies and what have you, taking them to the gas chambers and stuff like that, where many people, 11 million people had been incarcerated in these concentration camps, used as slave labor. We're talking communist Germans who had the communist political ideology. We're talking LGBT German citizens. We're talking biracial German citizens, especially those that could be identified as black or African ancestry. The Romani people. And then 6 million, they say, people who are identified as Jews. That's 11 million people. Rounded up and put in concentration camps. How could you let that happen? Because and they didn't even have to have the technology that we have today. They didn't need TikTok or any other social platform or people in these locations posting a video online for us all to witness these atrocities. No, I mean, the German people knew what was going on because it was being publicized in the German paper. They were justifying it. So I appreciate Axel Folio making me want to think about this on a deeper level, because I was already questioning, looking at people in my community that I know that if you had would ask me about this individual or that individual. And I don't hang with a lot of people, but if you've seen me at different events with this individual, different places, I would say they're quote unquote good people. We all got our flaws. And so some of these other people I wouldn't call friends, but how they seem to be apathetic towards the plight of the Palestinian people. And it especially disturbs me as a person who reads a lot of history, disturbs me that many of these people are African American. And again, didn't study Malcolm X, didn't study Alec Baldwin, Kwame Ture. I mean, you just simply pull up these stuff on the internet these days and see what they had to say about Zionism in the occupation of Palestine by white supremacists, trying to hide behind a Jewish identity. I understand why you might be devoid of that information, especially if you're relying on the mainstream media to educate you and bring to you these different stances. I don't watch a lot of it. I will catch viral clips of certain interviews or interactions of mainstream media. Let's say, for example, Joy Reid. I've never seen a clip go viral where she had on someone talking about it from a black perspective, or a panel discussion where they're talking about what these famous black people, activists, human rights defenders talked about on the issue of the Palestinians. And of course, the public school system, the indoctrination plantation, they not, we don't even get what you might call safe black history. They even trying to erase stuff in different states from the curriculum pertaining to the civil rights movement, just the peaceful part of it. And we never got in school, we didn't learn about Robert F. Williams, Negroes with Guns, right here, originated right here in North Carolina, just miles from where I'm at. So I understand that, but I guess that's why I feel it's incumbent upon the Black Talk Media Project to facilitate this type of content creation and get people to look these things up and to study history. And we don't have to invent the wheel. And don't so easily fall for the mainstream propaganda, which by now everybody knows a lot of Zionists work in mainstream media, have Israeli citizenships and everything. And they are allowed to use those platforms to give you a one-sided view of the conflict. But again, getting back to how did the Germans let all of that happen? So I asked AI to do a cursory research and to provide me with sources and all of that on any of the studies that focused on this event. Were there any studies published? So let's take a look at the responses that I got back. Oh yeah, hold up. Let me let me back up. I do want to share this video that Middle Eastern Eye account I follow on TikTok. We'll be able to see they tag in the video. And when I saw this video, this I'm tied to Germany, that era from the 1933 on up until the Nazis were defeated by the Soviet Union, basically. We want to be real about it. But I was like, I wonder if people was walking around during Nazi Germany and seeing all these people being rounded up, mistreated, beaten, unalived in the streets for their political views, for their sexual orientation, for their skin color, for their religious identity. I wonder if people were going around asking other Germans, hey, we gonna stand for this? We gonna let this happen? Is this not wrong? And what have you? And that's where my mind went. I imagine 1940s, let's say 1941 Germany, somebody walking around. That's what reminded me. This video made me think, imagine. But this is 2024 on Halloween just a couple of days ago. And let's watch this video of her asking these people about the genocide that's occurring right now in Palestine. Let me freeze my video. And we'll focus on this other video, all right? So yeah, let's pull that up. Thought it was pretty interesting.
Coalition. Free Palestine. Free Palestine. I'm 22. It's Halloween and I'm in New York. But the only thing on my mind right now is Palestine. Can I ask who you guys are voting for? Gotcha. Is that something that you're kind of upset about? No votes for genocide. Kamala Harris is complicit. Vote Green Party or not at all? Okay, we're saying no votes for genocide. Kamala Harris is complicit in this genocide. Okay, amazing, amazing. Thank you.
They definitely both are.
Yeah.
One just comes with more evilness, but they're all going to commit genocide.
I can tell you my strategy. Right now, I'm just saying Free Palestine. I would say Free Palestine, Free Palestine. Someone will come up and they'll just take a flyer. Other times, if someone just standing, maybe they're more approachable. Free Palestine, Free Palestine. Free Palestine, anyone?
I don't care. I only put my country first.
Gotcha. Okay. Union Square, we are saying no votes for genocide.
Wait, I have a question.
Yeah. Union Square's open right now. I'm not sure, but it will be open at 2 p.m. on Saturday.
That was a great segue.
No votes for genocide, right, guys? Okay, yeah. You see what's going on in Gaza, and you're like, that's true. Exactly. Yeah. So my parents are immigrants from Palestine. They're from Nablus, and I have been with the Palestinian movement ever since I was born. It's in my blood. I meet a lot of people who think that the Palestinian issue is equal to all the other issues. When I think that Palestine is at the forefront of every issue. It's a women's issue. It's apartheid. It's genocide. It's a racial issue. And I think that voting with Palestine in mind is not a one-issue vote.
Look what you hit for a speech for Trump.
Yeah.
It's always oh, that's why it's right for you. We have to make it bigger.
Right.
You know, I'm from my country, but my country supports Algeria.
Algeria.
Yeah.
And why aren't you voting for Kamala Harris?
No.
And why?
Sorry. No. She killed a lot of people.
There it is. What the activist was talking about at the end, I think a word, in one word we could sum up, is intersectionality. She said it's a woman's issue. Nobody's been unalive like women, mothers, and their children, to include infants that, Axel Folio is talking about here in his tweet. It's intersectional. The racism, again, I mentioned the teachings of Malcolm X, Kwame Ture, what Alec Baldwin wrote about it. These are well-established issues, and they all intersect. Perhaps that's what the Black Panther Party, matter of fact, that is why they stood in solidarity, to the point that they actually went there. You can find the pictures online. There was even a Palestinian Panthers chapter. I think Malcolm X said it best, that, and I'm going to paraphrase because I don't remember it exactly. It'll come to me later, but I'm going to paraphrase. He said there's going to come a time where we won't look at these as black and white issues, but as issues of the oppressed versus the oppressor. And that goes back to some of my previous content where I'm asking African Americans, when did we become colonizers? When did we become oppressors? If you care to go check out that archive, I've used a historical view on that. Oh, and by the way, after we get through some of my slides that I have prepared about what the studies showed, the reasoning of these German citizens who witnessed a genocide and either contributed to it directly or turn their back on it and be like, well, it ain't me. At least it ain't me. And I can see some people not speaking out because of fear. And let's make no mistake, before we move on to that first slide of fear, let me pull up what some information about German citizens who spoke out. Because we don't want to portray an entire nation of people of being cowards or being genocidal maniacs or just explicit racists. We have to acknowledge that there were people who spoke out against it and paid with their lives. Let me move some of this stuff out of the way that's in my way that I'm trying to look at my screen. Okay, there we go. Move that out. So I asked the question, were any German citizens arrested for speaking out against the Nazis for persecuting Jews and others? Just like, again, to bring it to modern times, we've seen over the past year, these nonviolent student protests and encampments and police being sicked on these students in total disregard for their First Amendment speech rights. That's why I'm like, people think we got so much freedom, then you have to be blind to other people's freedoms that's being abused. Or you're for their abusal, for the abusal of their freedoms because you don't agree with whatever issue they speaking out on. That's not right. So I asked that question. Yes, many German citizens who spoke out against the Nazi regime's persecution of Jews and other marginalized groups face severe consequences, including arrest, which we've seen here in the United States, imprisonment, which we've seen here in the United States, and even execution. I don't think we've seen that yet. Have we? Have any protesters been unalive by police? The Nazi regime was ruthless in its suppression of dissent, targeting anyone who criticized its policies or attempted to aid victims. Sound like a current government. Well, two, actually. And really, I don't even look at the Israeli government as a sovereign nation. I look at it as an extension of USA Inc., that is the United States of America Incorporated. Zionist Joe Biden said it many times during his career. He said if it didn't exist, we have to invent it. Meaning we have to have us an outpost where we can base military assets and then strike these people if they don't go along with the program we setting down. That's just the truth of the matter. This stuff isn't even controversial. Some notable examples of Germans speaking out against what was going on. The White Rose Movement, this group of students led by siblings Hans and Sophie Skoll distributed anti-Nazi leaflets, much like that activist we just saw in the video was doing on Halloween here in the United States, condemning the persecution of Jews and calling for resistance. In 1943, Hans and Sophie were arrested, tried for treason, and executed by guillotine. You know, we had Benjamin Netanyahu, an indicted war criminal, stand in the halls of Congress, stand in our Congress, and give a speech where he calls students protesting on our campuses here in the United States and said that they should be executed, they should be arrested, that they were treasonous, and got a standing ovation. The treasonous ones are the ones who gave him that standing ovation. And we don't even have to go into the money influence of AIPAC, which gives to both sides of the aisle. Because remember, Republicans and Democrats gave this man a standing ovation as he pontificated on and calling for the violation of what Americans say are our most sacred rights. Make it make sense, other than these people are bought and paid for. And every last one of them, be they Republicans or Democrats, I ain't got no use for them. So in 1943, they were arrested, tried for treason, and executed by guillotine. Their courageous actions have since become symbols of resistance against tyranny. Then we got Dietrich Bonhoeffer, a Lutheran pastor theologian. Trying to scroll down, it's kind of difficult. Let me move this over here. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, a Lutheran pastor and theologian. Bonhoeffer was an outspoken critic of the Nazi regime and its treatment of Jews. And again, it wasn't just the Jews, it was the Romani people, communists. And we really don't get a lot of information about those people again. That's what, 5 million people? He was arrested in 1943 for his role in resisting the Nazis, including involvement in a plot to assassinate Hitler. Bonhoeffer was eventually executed in 1945, just weeks before the end of the war. Martin Niemöller, I'm very familiar with this name. He said, first they came for the communists. I wasn't a communist, and I'm paraphrasing it. So I didn't stand up and speak out for them. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I wasn't in the union, so I ain't stand up and speak for them. Then they came for the gay people. I wasn't gay, so I ain't stand up and speak for them. Then they came for me, and there was nobody left to stand up. And I just paraphrased the F out of that, but go look him up. Martin Niemöller, he was a Lutheran pastor. Niemöller initially supported Hitler, but became a critic after seeing the persecution of Jews and other groups. He was arrested in 1937 for his opposition and spent 7 years in concentration camps, including Dachau. August Landmesser, known for a famous photograph in which he refused to salute Hitler. I remember that photograph where everybody else is like sheep, giving up the Nazi salute to Hitler. And he's standing there with his arms folded with a defiant look on his face. Never knew his name until now. August Landmesser, known for a famous photograph in which he refused to salute Hitler. Landmesser had married a Jewish woman, which was illegal under Nazi law. He was arrested multiple times and eventually sent to concentration camp where he reportedly died. Wow. And just a point of note in history, the Nazis came to the United States to study Jim Crow laws, segregation laws, and they based most of their new society they created on the United States. They got their inspiration. Hell, Hitler gave the United States a shout out in his book, Mein Kampf, and praised the genocide he did against the indigenous people of Turtle Island. Sure did, man. Nazis and Hitler are not the standard of evil. No, America is. America is. The United States is the standard bearer. Okay? So, August Landmesser, let me give you a salute. All right? Clergy and religious groups. I think this is the last one. Clergy and religious groups. Before I go into clergy and religious groups, let me recognize the over 300,000 African American or black Christians, whatever label, however they identify, these are black people who their pastors, there might have been 50 of them, I'm not sure of the exact number. This is back early in genocide, in this genocide, back in January, still early yet, right? Been going on for a few months. Those pastors said that our congregation is not going to support Joe Biden. They're not going to vote for this man and what he's doing against these Palestinian people. Again, perhaps, you know, those churches, those pastors might be in touch with historical roots of the black church and who we stood in solidarity with and who we recognized as being oppressed. But that was back in January. And I was so relieved to see that. And then, let me give a shout out to the, what is it called? The National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP, which I was briefly a member of. I'm not going to go into that story, but I think this was back in June or July, where they issued a stance on this genocide. And they was like, we against genocide. And called for immediate ceasefire. I was like, can't claim to stand up for the advancement of colored people and then stand by while colored people are slaughtered. All them black and brown babies over there just being unalive. Man, it's just sick. So let me get to these German clergy and religious groups who did stand up. Many clergy members who spoke out or aided Jewish people were arrested. Some were part of the Confessing Church, which opposed Nazi interference in Protestant churches. Catholic clergy like Father Bernhard Lichtenberg also faced arrest. Lichtenberg was detained for openly praying for Jews and died on his way to a concentration camp. These individuals and groups faced arrest, torture, and execution, showing how dangerous it was to oppose the Nazi regime openly. Their stories illustrate the regime's intolerance for dissent and the courage it took to stand up for human rights in such a repressive environment. So I just had to, I guess, before I get into the cowards, those who refuse to take a stand. And again, I'm not judging anyone, not passing judgment. I'm trying to understand your actions. I'm trying to get inside your mind to rationalize how, especially somebody who look like me, who come from an oppressed people, who are still being oppressed under 21st century slavery and human trafficking here in the United States. We should be able to identify when we see things like racism, white supremacy. We should be able to spot it right away. There should be no confusion about what we're seeing. This is racism, white supremacy. The Israeli government, full of Zionists, elected officials, are all from European countries. Or descended, or their parents are descendants. These are what people classified as white. Religion has nothing to do with what they're practicing. So again, shout out to the Torah Jews here on TikTok and other Jewish voices for peace for trying to make it clear and being arrested and thrown in jail for saying, no, this don't represent our culture. This doesn't represent our beliefs, and making a distinction between yourself and these Zionists who have hijacked a religious system for political gain and material gain. So did want to acknowledge that some people do speak out. But today, I'm not really seeing it in my community. My community, and when I say my community is 80% white, maybe 10% black, maybe. And then the rest, Pacific Islander, Hispanic, Latino, which are a growing population in this county. And I don't really see people really tuned in or engaged. Although there were people at the Harris campaign in Charlotte at the event of rally that were protesting. I seen the Democrat snatched the woman, violently snatched a sign saying end the genocide or whatever it said from those protesters who weren't even inside the venue. Acting real MAGA, right? Acting just like the MAGA people, right? Violent. How dare these people exercise their First Amendment speech rights as U.S. citizens to say this woman is complicit in a genocide? So there are people standing up. Let's get to the first one. Okay, it's saying something about my live chat. I think I'll fix that now. You find this content useful, constructive, just trying to understand the psychology of some of the people in my community. Some of them, I know that they practice white supremacy. So I'm not confused about them, but some of the other people. So let me pull up, let's get rid of, let me see. How do we recover? Let's go to number one, fear. And I understand fear. I understand why people are afraid. They're afraid of losing their jobs. They're afraid to go to a protest that might be seen on TV, and they might work for a person who's a Zionist or neo-Confederate racist, and yeah, they'll be retaliated against. We've had states in the United States pass unconstitutional laws called anti-BDS, saying you can't boycott or pull your stocks out of or encourage others to divest from Israeli companies and what have you. That's illegal. You know why? Because probably many of those representatives are invested over there. That's why Tim Walz won't pull that money out of Israel that's invested, the Minnesota workers' pensions or whatever. And I hope they lose all the money. Because that economy is, I don't know if y'all been paying attention, but how can any economy work doing something like this? They're totally dependent on welfare from U.S. taxpayers. So, again, if you like this content, please share it, like it, subscribe, become a subscriber. You're seeing this content on other platforms. There's various ways you can help support the programming. But fear, number one. This was, again, from studies that was done on Germans during the Nazi regime or after it fell. Fear and obedience to authority. Many cited fear of retribution from the Nazi regime and a sense of obligation to follow orders. Studies like Stanley Milgram's obedience experiments later highlighted how ordinary people under certain conditions might follow authority even to the point of committing harm. Germans in various positions often claimed that they were just following orders or had little choice but to comply. We hear that excuse a lot, just following orders. And these oppressive systems rely on that. That's like you saying you're no better than a trained animal, a trained attack dog. I'm just following the order. My master says sick 'em, so that's what I'm going to do. Doesn't matter that these are Americans who are simply engaging in a peaceful protest with signs and bullhorns and not destroying property. I'm just going to follow orders and bust some heads and arrest some people and break up this peaceful protest. That's what we seeing happening. Just following orders. Again, shout out to members of the United States military, members of the Biden administration, members at the State Department, that's Biden administration, who have resigned over this. There have been people who have resigned, standing on conscience, saying I will not be part and parcel and complicit in this. Those people do exist. And they are risking something. A couple of people had to retire from the military, but they already passed the retirement requirement like 20 plus years. You don't get to work in the White House and the State Department without having some years in already and acquiring some rank. Straight, I got a lot of respect for people like that. They was like, that's just too much. That's why I got out the military. It was just too much. Seeing these numbers in the tens of thousands of known civilians estimated to be unalive from American bombs. This was during George H.W. Bush's regime. Certainly played a role in me making the decision to separate after 6 years. Didn't want, no. That's when it became clear to me this ain't about no freedom and liberty for all. This ain't about fighting them over there to protect us at home. No, this is all about corporate profits. So I understand fear. And I understand people do get arrested, become political prisoners. We see it all throughout U.S. history. There are Black Panthers still in prison. I'm grateful to see some of them getting out here in the past couple of years after 30, 40, 50 years, but it's still many behind. Puerto Rico was in the news. Shout out to Oscar, what is Oscar's last name? Rivera. But I read he just was let out. I think during the Obama administration. I was unaware that he was even let out. As I was debating with another African American who identifies as a Democrat, who was in his comments arguing with a person identifying with the MAGA crowd about whether Puerto Rico is within the United States. Clearly it is not in mainland United States. Clearly it is not a state. So actually the MAGA guy is right. It's an island that exists outside the United States. Give me just a second. So the African-American guy, who again, I had just made some content about when did we Black people become colonizers, right? And he's saying that it's a possession. I called it a colony. He was like, no, it's not a colony. It's a territory. I'm like, you're playing semantics now. You are looking at this from a colonizer's point of view. Them people don't have the same exact rights. They have to move off the island to get their full U.S. citizenship rights, but if they remain on the island, they are a possession. But anyway, I'm getting off track. But I understand the fear aspect of it, but the following orders, it also reminds me of when I was stationed at Schofield Barracks in Hawaii, my first duty station when I joined the military back in '87. So this was, I think it was around 87, 88. When did Rodney King happen? When did he get beat up? And then we had the LA uprisings. When did that happen? Whatever year that was, I was in the military. We were in the barracks, me and my Black friends, all soldiers, fellow soldiers, watching that on TV. Then we reading, seeing about them deploying the National Guard out on these Black people. And I was like, man, really? And I was just, 20 years old, maybe 21. And I asked my Black friends, when did they deploy? Now, we were active duty, so that wasn't going to happen. It would take much more than that small uprising for them to deploy active duty troops. But I was like, when did they deploy us to LA? And then our CEO, this white man, gave us live rounds, issued us live rounds, and told us to fire on these people. Would you do it? Would you follow those orders, or would you? There are guys still alive I'm still in contact with can verify my story. They'll tell you I'm telling you the truth. I asked them this question. Would you do it? And then, not to get off track, when people try to fearmonger about Donald Trump and saying, oh, this and that, he gonna take all your rights, as somebody told me in the comments. As if our rights aren't always constantly being assaulted, and people being deprived of their rights every day in the United States. Let's not act like that's something to come. So say it might get worse. Say that part. Say that part. But as a member of the military, a former member of the military, who asked that question of his friends, and I'm probably not the only one who asked such questions about whether or not what we're doing is ethical, and should we really be doing this? Are we going to blindly follow orders? Okay, I'm sure I'm not the first one. And so when people talk about Trump, I'm like, well, you do know that according to the UMCJ, you don't have to follow orders, unlawful orders. So in order for them to deploy, get some generals or colonels or whatever grade to pull a coup or do something like that, round people up and put them in the concentration camps, like we're seeing the Biden administration go along with, and I did read about the CIA helping the Israelis run a torture camp in the West Bank. Could have been Gaza, but man, we all deep up in there. Let's hope that we got some people of conscience in the military who would say, I'm not following those orders. That's what it comes down to. It comes down to working class people and how much we're indoctrinated. And what kind of critical thinking skills do we have? Or have we simply been programmed to follow orders and not ask questions. So that was one of the number one reasons cited in this study: fear and trained obedience to authority. Never question authority, right? Let's move on to number two. What was number two? And I might have put this one number one, but propaganda. Malcolm X once said, media is the most powerful entity on the face of the planet. It controls the minds of the masses. It can make the innocent look guilty and the guilty look innocent, and that's power. And it just so happened, when I came across that clip in 2007 or 2008, I understood and was thankful that I picked communications as my MOS when I went into the military, and learning, even had access to computer technology before the general population. This is back again in the 80s. And knew that my skill set was perfect for building Black Talk Radio Network. But propaganda, media programming. So number two was normalization of anti-Semitic and racist propaganda. Again, they learned this stuff from the United States. The Nazi regime invested heavily in propaganda to dehumanize Jews, Romani people, the disabled, LGBTQ plus individuals, political dissidents, and other marginalized groups. For years before the Holocaust, this constant indoctrination fostered widespread prejudice and a sense of us versus them, which led some to believe that targeted groups posed a real threat to German society. Many absorbed and accepted these ideals, making it easier to rationalize atrocities. Again, this didn't start with them. They were just kind of became masters of it. Joseph Goebbels, master of propaganda. Television programming, commercials, when things just to get us to buy stuff, products. They spend millions and millions of dollars in the production of this stuff because it works. Most of us just swallow everything we see on cable news, hook, line, and sinker. You know? And it's done primarily through media. And that is why they trying to force TikTok and bring pressure on all platforms to censor dissent against the U.S. government. Let's not even talk about parties, because most of these crimes are bipartisan in nature. Let's just be real about what we're dealing with here. The American people got to get out of this mindset of you're either red or blue, or you're a Democrat or you're a Republican. Like, those are the only two parties that exist. There are other parties that have ethical people in them with policies that reflect many of the values that people say they want. So propaganda, man, I can't stress enough. That's why it's very important. It's saying that it has detected inactivity. So let me fix that. There we go. So we should be back on. Let me see if I can check some stuff out. So yeah, propaganda. And then again, that's why it's important to recognize. Remember when Ta-Nehisi Coates went on one of those first interviews? I think it was the morning show on CBS. And I think the guy's name is Tony, and how aggressive and angry his interrogation. It wasn't an interview, it was an interrogation of Ta-Nehisi Coates saying, how can you go to Israel and then come back and call it an apartheid and tell the truth about what's really going on? My wife lived in Israel, they just left and all this. So Tony's a Zionist. And they are all throughout the media, mainstream media, let's just be real about it. Dana Bash, an Israeli Zionist. And they sanitize and they whitewash. And again, they got a lot of practice because primarily these are white people. And if you don't, well, I'm sure nobody's claiming that propaganda didn't play a role. All this anti-black propaganda being produced by Hollywood, even in the days of just radio, this racist programming, targeting white people. You don't think that played a role in how they were acting towards black people and Chinese people and Mexicans, Mexican immigrants, or the Mexican people who was already here before you push your way out west, but whatever. Propaganda played a big role in that. New York Times, Washington Post. You really objectively study the history of these publications. You'll see that they justified slavery. They came up with justifications for slavery, justifications for Jim Crow, justification for KKK terrorism, justification for the mass slaughter of indigenous people of Turtle Island for the uninformed. I'm talking about North America. How the West was won, you know that question? Yeah, genocide, that's how it was won. Mass slaughter of women, children, and just everybody. Ethnic cleansing. Okay, propaganda. Think about the newspapers the people was reading out east. Well, they was using dehumanizing terms for these indigenous people. The savages, and they did this and they do that. Much like how we see on the media talk about Palestinians, or whether we are talking Hamas, whatever resistance organization, they're all the same in the eyes of white supremacists. So let's just be real about that. But it's all done through propaganda. That's how you gain people's consent to commit mass human rights violations. And it plays a big role in why we see people with these apathetic attitudes today in the face of this genocide over in Gaza that's spreading, what's happening in the Congo, all the atrocities the United States involved in South and Central America throughout the years, and we ain't talking ancient history. It's just nonstop atrocities. Because non-white lives don't matter to these people. They're just collateral damage standing in the way of capitalism, the ability to profit off of the people or the resources in the land. So let's just move to number 3. What's the number 3 reason found in these studies that Germans gave, or how, they could not stand up, speak out? I mean, that's the least you could do. But 3, denial and distance from the event. So, I don't know exactly how far Palestine is from here. Maybe 3,000 miles, 3,000 plus miles. It's happening on the, very far away outside the United States. It's not like we're in any of the neighboring countries and we can see the missiles. We could hear the artillery. It's far removed from us. It's easy to put something out of your mind if you ain't seeing and hearing it happen, especially if it ain't happening to you. So that's the distance part. And then the denial part is when people want to deny that Ta-Nehisi Coates didn't, like Tony on CBS News, didn't see what he saw over there, that all these people are lying, that we can't believe the videos that we seeing. Just massive gaslighting program. But this is what some of the Germans said. They said some Germans claim they were unaware of the extent of the atrocities or did not fully understand what was happening in concentration and extermination camps. Oh, but you still stood by while these people in the millions, again, 11 million victims, known victims, had to see them being arrested. It was written about, it was all in the paper. So how could you be unaware? That's just a bald-faced lie, man. These people lying. Oh, we didn't know. Yes, you knew. You know. The regime actively hid details of the Holocaust and created euphemisms like resettlement to mass deportations. That's a term that comes up a lot in this conflict with the Zionists against the people of Palestine. Illegally occupying not just parts of Palestine, but also parts of Lebanon, Syria. We would think about the Golan Heights and setting up all these illegal settlements. Matter of fact, when Barack Obama, I got mixed feelings about him. Would love to have a conversation with the brother. He do follow us on Black Talk Radio on Twitter or X. It's been following us for a long time. I don't really post over there no more. But his record is filled with atrocities. But he did try to buck the system. And I remember he refused to veto a UN resolution condemning Israeli illegal settlements being built somewhere, which was a break from, the United States usual support of white supremacy over there in that region. And Kamala Harris actually co-sponsored legislation to condemn Barack Obama for not vetoing the Zionists and telling them you can't keep displacing these people and taking their land. And Republicans and Democrats alike beat up on Barack Obama. Kamala Harris was part of part of that mob. And let's not forget who she married to. She married to a white Zionist. So I don't think there's any excuse that people can use to say they didn't know. Let me see. Many were shielded from direct exposure to the atrocities and after the war claimed ignorance. Okay, you didn't see it directly, like we're able to get on TikTok and maybe other platforms and see people incinerated alive while they're, sleeping in these refugee tents and what have you. The stuff the Israeli IDF criminals are posting on Twitter themselves, posting on social media, them committing atrocities and stuff. It's out there. You just choose not to look at it, right? So that's it's a word for it I'm looking for. Has to do with ignorance, willful ignorance. You want to remain willfully ignorant. You don't want to be confronted with those images. Michelle Obama at a campaign rally talking about fighting Donald Trump for mothers and babies, and we got to stand up for women. Well, what about this foreign policy? And I only mention Michelle Obama because remember when mainstream media reports were saying those girls got kidnapped in Africa, I forget the exact country. She put out something on social media, bring back our girls. Like these African girls were a part of a global community and we want to protect girls and women everywhere. Y'all remember that? I remember it because I posted a picture of it and I was talking smack about what her husband was doing to women and girls in Libya or wherever, all these women suffering and children suffering all over the world. Why are you picking this specific region? Has to do probably with, I think they try to connect it to use it as an excuse. That's why we need a drone bases in Africa, in Niger and Burkina Faso. Those African nations that recently told the U.S. to get the F out of their countries and what have you. I think that's why she was doing that. I can't say for certain, but my professional intuition tells me that's why she did it. So how you gonna stand on the stage, talk about protecting, if the brother's gonna stand up for the women, our women. Yeah, I stand up for all women and girls and all humans. It's just all under human rights. We ain't even gotta bring gender into it. So again, going back to what the activist said on the video I played earlier, this is the intersectionality of this issue. Again, this black person said to me, that ain't even our issue. Yes, it is. That's why we can't have nice things in the United States, like universal health care. That's why we can't have free, what they call it, child care up until kindergarten or whatever, till they can go to school, so mama and dad can work and what have you. That's why we can't have these things. That's why we can't get our reparations, because we're busy giving it to these Zionists in Israel to unalive people and expand their territorial grab so they can build resorts on it and things of that nature. I mean, it's all documented. It's not like I'm making this stuff up. We see the videos and the news reports all the time. So I don't think nobody today can claim their ignorance. But we know how algorithms work, and you're only going to get fed the type of content that you seek out and normally like and share. So that's why it's important that if you like, the content that we create through Black Talk Radio Network, you support this specific program, please think about making a financial contribution. Let's go to number 4. Economic and career incentives. Economic and career incentives. You know what, though? I think I'm going to take a short break. That's how we do it in Radio Land. I'm going to take a break, kick some tunes, and then come back on the other side. We got what? 1, 2, 3. We just got 3 more categories of what Germans said about why they did this, that, or the other during the Holocaust in Germany. Because we're looking at it right now. Something similar is happening right now. How bad we gonna let it get? We gonna let it climb to 11 million people? And I keep hearing in the media they saying 40,000. Those are what we call bomb data estimates. But It's actually higher than that, and they know it. Like they've canvassed these buildings, they collapse full of people. Like those bodies been cleared out because when people go to try to retrieve those bodies, then they get hit with missiles and what have you. I believe, I think this doctors group put out an estimate of something like 200,000. So when is enough going to be enough? When it get to be 500,000, 500,000, that when we going to see the majority of Americans get out there in the streets? 1,000,000, we're going to let it get to 1,000,000, 2,000,000. How long we going to let this go? Well, how long did the Nazis have? About 6, 7 years, maybe 8 years. That's what we trying to do. Allow that to happen. So like I said, we're going to take a break. Says she's going to put it in the want ads. That seemed to be real with y'all. That seemed to be a theme of some of the TikToks that show up in my For You page. Women saying that they need somebody new. Okay. That's how they feel. Who am I to say they don't? I'm not with them. So, yeah. So where do we leave off? Again, ask yourself, do you fit into any of these? Psychologically analyze yourself. Do you identify with anything these people are saying? Are you paralyzed by fear? That's why you know it's wrong. I mean, over 70% of Americans over a phone poll said they want an immediate ceasefire, but that was like last year sometime, you know? But number 4 is economic and career incentives. I mean, that goes back to the people I mentioned earlier, retiring rather than being complicit in a genocide. Let me unfreeze my camera now that we're back from the break. But yeah, retired from the State Department. People who might have had a long career ahead of them in the federal government, retired with great benefits and what have you. They was like, this is just too much. This is too much. And I can identify with that. For those working within the Nazi government, military, or industries associated with the Holocaust, complicity sometimes came from self-interest. You know, like IBM, that computer company still around, they were implicated in it. Volkswagen, that was like Hitler's car for other people. The people's car, I think is what it was called. You know, people making a lot of money in the arms industry, just like today. I bet you those arms manufacturers, and I'm talking about the workers, I bet they're getting a lot of overtime. Got to provide them shells and missiles and stuff, not just for Israel and their genocide, but also for the Ukrainian war. Then they got to keep Taiwan supplied. And as a person who has been in the military and follows people who were in the military and now are political commentators, shout out to Scott Ritter, I was like, you know, from a national security perspective, this is actually making the American homeland less safe. Hell, we can't keep up with the ammunition orders. We're running low. We're priming ourselves for a homeland invasion. I don't believe that any government has any of those designs because they know the American people are armed to the teeth. So that'd be a high casualty situation for a ground invasion, but they're making us less safe. I mean, again, if you study history, you know this led to the downfall of the Roman Empire. Overextending itself militarily, just want to conquer the world. That's what the United States is doing. It has always been their aim. That's why the architect is modeled after Roman architect in Washington, D.C. They imagine themselves this white supremacist superpower. And their power is mainly through violence and economic schemes. So that's number 4. People have financial incentives. Again, that's why Tim Walz and people like him, these universities, they got money invested in Israeli stocks. Give me just a second. They got money invested in Israeli stocks, Israeli companies. That's why they won't pull it out. And that's why they want the U.S. government to fully back Israel, as Harris and Trump has promised to do. They're trying to protect their investments, but I think those investments gone. I mean, even pass laws to lock up American citizens or deny them opportunities if they sign on to or support a boycott, divestment, and sanctions of Israel over gross human rights violations. So anybody talking about Especially any politician who has taken the oath of office that said they supposed to be upholding the laws of the Constitution, they're in violation. We might as well impeach the whole damn government, to be honest with you. That's where we are in this nation. I really feel that way. It is utterly corrupt. And even though I'm a voter, I've been going out canvassing, telling people, what their rights are, what type of IDs they're going to need here in North Carolina, the different dates and stuff. Not endorsing candidates, but just, trying to mobilize these people because local and state elections matter too. So I say that as a person who came across people who was like, I don't fool with that mess. They're all corrupt. Voting don't matter. And I certainly understand why they feel that way. And I'm not there to debate them and tell them that their observations are incorrupt. It is evident that this government is bought and paid for. Got us in the middle of a clear-cut genocide. Right? Providing not only funds, but material support, military support. This ain't just the Israelis, it's us and the UK. When I say us, I mean the United States. I don't mean us in terms of my community. Well, then again, there are people in my community who support that type of stuff. And will support it happening here. How could they not? Okay, let's move on to number 5. Again, you appreciate the content, like the live, share the live, become a subscriber, and help to support not just this channel, but the other channels that you'll find on blacktalkradionetwork.com. Conformity and social pressure. Social psychologist Elizabeth Noel Newman developed the spiral of silence theory, which suggests that people often suppress dissenting opinions to avoid social isolation. Many Germans did not speak out against the Nazis or their policies for fear of being ostracized, persecuted, or punished. If I speak out against Kamala Harris being part of a genocide and I don't support genocide, I'm not going to get invited to the Democrats' Christmas party. Or if I tell my MAGA friends that, I don't agree with Trump putting on the yarmulke and pledging, our support for genocide in a situation that got nothing to do with us. Well, I guess we won't be inviting you to the next monster truck event there, Bubba. Yeah, they fear of their friends. Peer pressure is real. Remember when this stuff first went down in Ukraine? Well, it didn't just go down. It actually went down, started in 2014 with the overthrow of the democratic elected government by the Obama administration. I shouldn't say they directly overthrowed it, but they played a role in it and they provided material support for the people who did. Those right-wing, racist, anti-LGBTQ, might as well call them conservatives. That's now running Ukraine. But remember, all of them yellow and blue flags with you was on Facebook, how everybody changed it. It's very rare to see them now, at least in my timeline. But I remember my timeline was flooded. People in my community, I'm like, y'all don't even know what's going on. How much do you know of the background of that situation? No, all you saw was CBS News or MSNBC, somebody saying Putin's evil, this is an invasion, nobody was threatening him. He had no reason to come into Ukraine and conduct this special military operation. And he's committing genocide and war crimes and all that. You just threw up that flag because you believe what them people told you. You ain't know nothing about 2014 and the overthrow of the democratically elected government. You then don't know about the people in the East separating themselves from the government that just came into power through a coup. I'm sure if Donald Trump had succeeded back whenever that was that 2020? Had succeeded, I'm sure many of you Democrats out there be like, I'm not recognizing that government, and y'all might have been wanting to break away and just like the Confederate States broke away when they thought Lincoln was going to abolish slavery, which he had no intentions of doing, and I would contest anybody that calls him an abolitionist. He talked the talk, but he didn't walk the walk. Okay? So people don't want to get ostracized. They want to be in with the popular majority. And so they just be quiet. They might disagree with what their friends are saying, but they don't have the courage to speak up because You know, they want to get invited out to cocktails with the rest of the group, and you can't stand out from the group. You can't have an individual opinion. And I'm just saying that as a statement of fact, not as a way of I'm talking bad about these people or indicating something about them. I guess I am really, but I'm trying to look at it from a scientific way, you know. But because you know what, one day it could come back on us. We could descend back into the days of Jim Crow. Hell, they never got rid of slavery. Read the 13th Amendment. Read your state constitution, then come back and tell me the United States abolished slavery. So I do know all of this can come back on us. And so if I don't stand up for those people, then why should I expect anybody to stand up for me when my rights is being are being abused, when my humanity is being violated? Okay? So conformity and social pressure. Conformity and social pressure. We certainly see that. We see movie stars who express any kind of solidarity or empathy for the Palestinian people get axed from roles. Get axed from roles. They get blackballed, okay, to use some of their terminology. They lose roles. They might lose jobs. Hell, look at the university, and one of them was a black woman who got fired because these Zionists gaslit people, ran this gaslighting operation to say that these protests against genocide are anti-Semitic. Again, these are Zionists trying to hide behind the cover of a religion that doesn't endorse the religious scholars and stuff. Now, the Orthodox Jewish community say, no, this ain't Judaism. Jill Stein, the Green Party nominee for president, who's a Jew, said, no, this is genocide. We don't stand for that. It doesn't represent what I was taught growing up in the aftermath of the German Holocaust against our people. So, conformity and social pressure. Let's move to the next one. This will be the last one. Where do you fit? Do you fit anywhere into this? Do you? 6, moral disengagement. I think this is a lot of people that I know. Moral disengagement. Some admitted feeling a sense of detachment or dehumanization towards the victims. Well, again, that's a result of the propaganda, which was listed as number 2 in this list, which I argue I would have put number 1, but they put fear number 1, or 1 or 2. Both of them are powerful motivators. So this is what this talking about. That dehumanization came via the propaganda, the television, the radio broadcast, the movies. Again, Goebbels was a master. This allowed them to morally disengage from the acts committed. This attitude is evident in Adolf Eichmann's trial, where he described his role in the Holocaust in purely bureaucratic terms, detached from the human toll. We see these people, these individuals get up in front of the White House press podium every day, being asked now tough questions. And they act like they totally disengaged from it. They even sanitize it and whitewash it. They didn't even justify it. So it's like your moral compass don't even exist. If it ever did, in some of these people, I would say we have to ask that question. So moral detachment. Like, you really don't stand on your moral business like you say you do. You say you stand for truth and justice, but you really don't. Because it's conditional, it's based on certain conditions on whether or not you're gonna stand on truth and justice. Depends on who we're talking about, on whether or not we're gonna tell the truth or go along with the lies. It depends on who the victims are not, or whether or not we're gonna be empathetic towards them, or whether we're gonna be detached for them and dehumanize them, which we see that. We've long seen it as African Americans in the United States, of us being demonized in the anti-black media production. They gotten a little more slick with it. You know, they took over the rap genre and made got all these radio stations to flood the markets with what's commonly known as gangster rap, where we hear black people talking about doing bad things to other black people, and there's propaganda, there's programming, and we see those people who become morally disengaged. Propaganda is a big part of number 6, y'all. That's how they get you to the point of moral disengagement. They also will hide behind patriotism. So, now the summary said that, let me pull up the summary. These explanations are justifications. Wait a minute. These explanations are not justifications, but rather reflect the various psychological, social, and cultural forces that allow many Germans to either actively participate in or passively, like millions and millions and millions, tens of millions of people that's voting for Trump and the Harris, passively accept the Holocaust. And in retrospect, many people express guilt, horror, and shame, though some also continue to deny responsibility. These rationalizations reveal a complex interplay of individual and societal factors that allow such atrocities to occur with relatively little resistance. Are we not living in the 1940s in 2024 in the United States? Are we not? Do we not see this reflected in our government with 90%, if not 99.9% of elected officials in Congress and working within the executive branch of the government who are down with this and offering little resistance? Again, shout out to those who have resigned. But it just goes to show you how, quote unquote, good people are far few in between. Not many people really got the guts to, as we say, stand on business. It's just the truth. So, sadly, that's where we are. That's where we are. Okay, at this point, if there's any guest requests within the, let's say, the next 8 minutes, I'll hang out and entertain any views, opinions, breakdowns of this topic we've been discussing. How did we get here? Do we fit into or multiple boxes in this list? Will we check multiple boxes? I guess is what I'm saying. So, again, please support the production of independent Black media. Support voices who are not afraid to speak truth to power, who are willing to stand up and risk our social standing, our social capital, and stand up and just call a spade, as they say. Call a genocide, and nothing less. Doesn't matter if that costs me opportunities. Like I do a little side business. I detail cars. You think I'm gonna give a damn if somebody don't want to bring their car to me to detail or to just give it a simple wash and vet because I stand in solidarity with Palestinians and stand against Zionists and Zionism and wholeheartedly condemn it 100%, just like my role models did back during their day? I don't care, because I don't look to human beings to sustain my existence. I'm a spiritual person. And I respect everybody's right to practice whatever religion. And I try to keep it out of my programming. But when it comes down to, well, if this person get in power, you're gonna lose jobs and you're not gonna be able to feed your family, or the cost of rent is too high or groceries too, God will always provide. Yeshua has, through his Father, has always made a way for my family and got us through tough situations. When it looked like there was no way, a way came. But then there's also preparation. You know, I am a prepper. Got fishing gear, got the means to hunt wild game. I do live in the country. Do have the means to farm and have friends and family around here. I'm just very fortunate. So I don't fear any of that stuff, man. If I lose opportunities because I decided to do what I do best, and that's use my voice to raise awareness about and inform people about certain issues, well, that's my calling. And I felt like the Creator put that calling on my life. And so if the Creator put that calling on my life, He's going to provide for me to make sure I'm able to do it. He'll work on the heartstrings of individuals out there to contribute to the work that I'm engaged in. So I don't see that anybody wants to come up. Again, I'm still trying to learn this thing. Sound effects. Where is the thing where it talks about if people want to come up? All right. Yeah, I don't see that like I would if I was doing this from a phone. I'm using the desktop version, and no guest requests yet. All right. Well, with that said, I'm not one to mince words. Let me just remind you of blacktalkradionetwork.com. We call ourselves new media for the new millennium. Independent, internet-based media represents the new media. The old legacy media, they've been losing viewers a lot here lately. They're not getting millions and millions of views that they used to get. I think Fox News might still be hitting a million mark per show or a show. But overall, I think their viewership has declined because of independent media producers. And you can find a little collective of us over here at blacktalkradionetwork.com. If you like the content, the platform has the means for you to share it, and we appreciate those who will do so. So with that said, I'm out. Peace and blessings to all. Say no to genocide.